Okay, here we go. I've already done a video for WWE's Elimination Chamber Women's Tag Team match that opened the Elimination Chamber show. This video is going to be about the non-Elimination Chamber matches that took place at Elimination Chamber. Okay, the first one of those was the second match of the show, and it was Ms. McMahon. That's what yeah, you know what I'm getting at. So it was Ms. McMahon versus the Usos. The Miz and McMahon, they open the match. They look awesome. I mean, they really do. They look like a great tag team. They have all kinds of chemistry. They have all kinds of I don't know, of flair. You know what I mean? Like they come out. They look really good, but there's no drama. There's just no drama for the first 7 minutes of this match. Miz and McMahon, or maybe it was only 5 minutes, I don't know. But it felt like a while that there was just nothing going on, unless maybe you're a fan of the Usos. I think I like the Usos better than Shane and the Miz. I don't dislike anybody in this match. I like all four dudes. Shane maybe least of all, which is weird because he does a lot of the type of moves and takes a lot of the kinds of risks that I enjoy. It might just be this feeling inside of me that Shane is just the boss's kid, even though he's obviously proven himself as a capable wrestler time and time again, pretty much every time he's been given the chance, right? But and there's Shane looks awesome in this match for the first little bit here. He's out there shuffling his feet and rabbit punching, and it looks pretty good. There comes a point in time where both of the Usos are in kind of separate corners of the ring, not diagonally from each other, but this way, separate corners. And Shane McMahon climbs the one, and he goes coast to coast on Jimmy, and he nails it. He hits it. Then he goes and tries to do the same thing to Jay, climb the other turnbuckle, and Jay counters with a super kick. It's a really good looking super kick. The match kind of moves at this point outside of the ring, and there comes a point where I believe it was Jimmy went to go do a suicide dive, and he hit Jay. He hit Jay instead of Shane. Then what happened? Let's see here. Oh, no, he didn't hit it on Jay instead of Shane. He hit it on Jay instead of The Miz. That's right. The Miz is outside of the ring. The Miz then picks up Jay and puts him on a table. And Shane is, after having been super kicked on his coast-to-coast attempt, is understandably a little bit rattled and a little bit, woozy. But Miz throws Jay onto the table and tries to coax Shane into going up to the top rope and doing a splash through the announce table. And Shane, right? Shane's going to do it. So he does it. He climbs up to the top rope and he successfully puts Jay through the table with a splash. But Shane is done at this point. He is out. He's out. So then in the ring, Jimmy super kicks The Miz and goes up onto the top rope for a splash of his own. But The Miz gets his knees up. And then The Miz, after getting his knees up, eventually they're up on their feet, and he gets Jimmy into the skull-crushing finale, and he hits the skull-crushing finale. He goes for the pin. The pin is reversed, and now Miz's shoulders are on the mat. His feet are kicking around in the air. And 1, 2, 3, match over, new champion, Usos. Last thing I would have expected. Let's just be honest. With the drama, I can't remember which one it was, Jay or Jimmy, getting pulled over for drunk driving and like stepping up to a cop or whatever it was. I didn't think there was any way, first of all, that they were going to be losing this title at this pay-per-view. I thought it would be at Fastlane. I thought maybe they'd lose the title at Fastlane and then have a couple weeks of being mad at each other and then a match at WrestleMania. That was what I thought was going to happen with The Miz and McMahon. Apparently, they're losing it at Elimination Chamber to it. They don't tend to reward guys when they could make another decision who get in trouble for those kinds of things. I mean, we all make mistakes. I'm not trying to judge the dude. Like, I don't feel any differently about him now than I did before. It's a little curious to me. WWE doesn't have a tendency in the modern era to do those kinds of things. So this was definitely a big surprise, but the surprise in the end was really the only surprise of the match. If you asked me before the pay-per-view how I thought this match was going to go, I probably could have scripted it for you. And I think you could have scripted it for me too. I don't think I'm some kind of oracle here. You know what I mean? Like, I think we all could have figured this out. Except the end. The end was a surprise, legitimately. I mean, maybe you thought that they'd be losing now, and then we'd have like a longer 8-week-long build up to their match at WrestleMania. And that plan certainly makes sense. And I might have been right there with you until the news about the disorderly conduct with the cop. And then I thought, well, they're for sure going to retain. So they're like 2 stars. It wasn't a bad match. It wasn't unentertaining. For me, 2 stars is like average. That's like, I'll watch that match and not be mad about it, but don't expect me to be like just thrilled about it either. And that's kind of going to be a little bit of a theme going forward. Not to spoil anything, but that's kind of how I feel about most of the non-Elimination Chamber matches that took place at Elimination Chamber. The next match was a handicap match between Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley against Finn Balor for the Intercontinental Championship. And if you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I am a massive Finn Balor fan. He's my favorite right now. He might even be in my top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time. And that might sound a little insane, but I assure you everybody else on that list, maybe you wouldn't be on your list, but you wouldn't begrudge me too much. But Finn Balor, for whatever reason, and maybe it's mostly New Japan stuff, and when he used to come out dressed as different supervillains and stuff like that might really be what I love about the dude. But even in WWE, I'm always rooting for him and I'm always pulling for him. And this match did not start off good for the extraordinary man who does extraordinary things. Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley were just taking it to him for, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 minutes of just complete dominance. Balor eventually does get his legs at about the 3-minute mark of the match, but not for long. I mean, this whole match so far doesn't really look good for Finn. He gets a couple decent shots in, but then they're right back to just really taking it to him. And I mean, it's a handicap match, and he looked like he was working against it out there. Like he really looked like he was having a tough time. There comes a point in time where Lio Rush gets tagged into the match. And before the match, there was like a promo spot where Lio Rush was talking about how Finn Balor didn't have a chance. And between the two of them, there's just no way. And Bobby Lashley took some exception to that, it seemed like. He ended the interview early while Lio was talking. This interview's over. One of the few times you barely heard his voice, but one of the few times you're going to hear Bobby Lashley's voice lately. And he seemed a little nonplussed that Lio thought that he was a contributing member to the equation here. And that's important. I should have mentioned it, that there was some drama between the two of them. Bobby Lashley clearly unhappy with Lio Rush's feelings about himself and his own contributions, right? But either way, it's a Lio Rush. He wants into the ring, and he's egging Bobby on. Bobby maybe had taken a shot from Balor that maybe weakened him just a tad, but nothing too serious. And he kind of tags him in maybe a little defiantly, like, you want in, fine, get in, right? And Lio Rush kind of starts getting worked. Like, Finn Balor is working Lio Rush. And Lio is trying desperately to get to his corner to tag Bobby Lashley. And Finn is doing literally everything he can, holding on to the tips of this dude's boots to keep him away. And this was one of the highest drama spots in the whole match. I can't remember how Bobby Lashley wound up on the floor, on the ring floor, not on his back or anything. He was standing. It could have been Finn knocked him off. I think he did. I think it was either Finn whipped Lio Rush into the ropes, and that forced Bobby to jump down, or he knocked him off. I can't remember. Either way, Finn whips Lio Rush outside of the ring, and he and Bobby are standing in close proximity to each other. So if you've ever watched a Finn Balor match in the WWE, you know what is going to happen next. Balor is going to fly, and boy, does Balor fly. Yeah. Way over the rope, and it looks awesome. He looks like a freaking superhero. Crashes into both of them and wisely picks up Lio Rush and throws him back into the ring. And they, you know what? I just said wisely too, because that's like the line they were feeding us on commentary. But as far as I know, one of either Bobby Lashley or Lio Rush, only one of them could be the legal man at each time, at a given moment. So because Lio was the legal man when he was thrown out of the ring, he was, of course, if Finn wanted to get a pin, the man he had to throw back in the ring, right? And he didn't. You don't want to get a count out in that situation, because then you don't get your title, right? So like they kept saying like it was so wise of him to make sure he threw Lio Rush back into the ring. But that's kind of who he had to throw back into. There wasn't really another choice. They kept making it sound like he had some other kind of choice, something else he could have done. Like, really, I guess he could have let him sit out there a little longer. But after he flew and after the big impact, he throws Lio Rush back into the ring. He climbs up to the top rope, hits the coup de grace, and pins. Covers, 1, 2, 3, it's over. Finn Balor, brand new Intercontinental Champion. Bobby Lashley is pissed and like attacks Lio Rush in the ring. There's a vicious, it was almost like worse than any bump in the actual match, a vicious spine buster that Bobby Lashley threw down on Lio Rush. And oh man, and he's just if you look it up, he's listed at like 5'6". I don't believe it. He looks shorter than most of the women, and most of the women aren't that tall, 5'7", 5'8". Some of them are tall, but most of them aren't super tall. Alexa Bliss is apparently only like 5'4" or something like that. Like, I looked this stuff up because I wanted to see what this dude's height actually was, because he looks like a small child in the ring. He's a little dude, and Lashley spiked him. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen going forward with Lio Rush and what role, if any, he will play with Bobby Lashley going forward. I mean, they certainly won't be aligned together. Like, that's done. That was obviously done. Unless they're going to try and play Lio Rush off as somebody without a spine. You know, and I don't mean because of the spine buster, but as somebody who has no respect for himself. Unless they're going to play Lio off that way. Like, he's still standing next to Bobby, like, bandaged up and still trying to be his mouthpiece or whatever. Like, kind of like they do with Paul Heyman sometimes with Brock Lesnar, where Brock's kind of abusive and Paul looks kind of scared of him. You know, they might do like that, I suppose. But I think their alliance is over. I'm interested to see if there's any feud between the two of them, or if Lio even has any role on Raw going forward. The next match. And so, just to say, I'm very, very happy that Finn Balor is the Intercontinental Champion. I do kind of wish, though, that he had pinned Bobby Lashley to get it. It feels kind of cheap to me, even as a fan. So I feel like it must feel cheap to other people, too, maybe a little bit, if you're not a fan. Like, I don't mean if you dislike Finn Balor, but I mean if you're just, he's just another wrestler to you. And you're down to see entertaining matches that he's involved in, but you have no emotional dog in the fight, you might really feel like he kind of won this Intercontinental Championship in a very backhanded manner. Because I almost kind of feel like that, and I'm, arguably one of the dude's biggest fans. I don't know. So, 2.5 stars, maybe 3. Maybe 3 because of the drama. 3 because I'm going to give it 3 because of the drama involved with not only the ending between Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush, but some of the spots involving Balor trying to keep Lio Rush from tagging. There was a decent amount of high emotional content in this match. It was a bit of a roller coaster. So I'm willing to maybe give it a 3. But barely. That might mean I have to change my women's Elimination Chamber tag match score to like a 3.5 because I definitely liked it better than this match, but I feel weird giving this match like a 2.5. Maybe it's also because I'm such a Balor fanboy. Who knows? But yeah, that's my feelings about it. Did you think it was kind of cheap? I thought it was kind of cheap. The next match. Ronda Rousey versus Ruby Riott. And let me just say, Ruby Riott deserved better. This was the worst match of the night. And it's a bad match that turned into an okay spot. But we'll get into it. The match itself is a squash match pretty much. Ruby opens up looking hot, like she's coming out firing. But Ronda quickly, and I mean within 20 seconds, has complete control over the match and tosses Ruby out of the ring. And then I didn't even write down what led to the pin sequence because it all happened so fast after Ruby getting tossed out of the ring. The only thing I wrote down was squash match. It was a squash. Ronda looked pretty cool coming out dressed like Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat. I mean, I always loved using Sonya Blade when I played Mortal Kombat back in the day. It's cool that Ronda's involved with that character now. And it's cool that she was given permission by both Mortal Kombat. I assume she was given permission by the people at Midway, Konami, whoever makes that game. Might be both of them. She was given permission, I assume, to do that by the publishers of the game and the owners of that intellectual property, and also by WWE to come out like that. I think that's cool. I think it's a wise thing, both for Mortal Kombat to have their product promoted in this way, but it's also kind of a wise thing for WWE to kind of. It's a cool thing. It's a memeable, maybe not memeable. Maybe memeable is the wrong thing. It's a shareable thing. The image of Ronda Rousey dressed as Sonya Blade in the ring is very. You can see screenshots of that on Facebook or whatever going around. Like I can just imagine it. That they're out there. I haven't seen them yet, but they're out there. I guarantee you they're out there. People thought it was cool. And that's about the only cool thing about the match itself. Like half a star. Like Ruby Riott. That is not the way that you handle a young, up-and-coming talent. It's just not. Like, if it was a 5-minute match where, maybe Ruby got a couple of licks in, I'd feel completely differently about this, I think. I don't think I would give it a much higher score, but I wouldn't feel quite as, frankly, a little bit, angry about it as I do because she just deserves better. I'm not even a huge fan of hers, but I can recognize talent when I watch it on TV, And I can recognize somebody who's got a good angle, who's got a good gimmick, and you know, I almost said I was like a punk rocker myself. That would be erroneous claim. But like I like that aesthetic, you know. I like some of that music. I don't even know if she likes that music, you know. Anytime you get something like that in WWE, you're getting like the super hot topic version of it. But it's a cool character, and I like her, and she's a good wrestler. You know, Raw's women's division could use a little bit of help. I know Ronda is great and Sasha is great, and Bayley has been on fire for 3 weeks now, covering Sasha's butt when Sasha gets, you know, knocked out of a match and spends the whole match like knocked out somewhere, you know, and Bayley comes in and, you know, 2 matches she was the conquering hero, and 1 match she couldn't quite get it done. And that's why they had to come into the Elimination Chamber first. So I'm not trying to say there's no talent over there on Raw, but they need to give us a reason to believe in some of the other talent that they have over there. And giving Ruby just a few good spots in a 5-minute match with Ronda, that would have helped. And they missed that opportunity. What happens next? Charlotte gets in the ring and starts jawing at Ronda. And then coming out of the crowd like a paying customer comes Becky Lynch hobbling up on crutches. She's making it look good. I'm over it. I'm really freaking over Becky being injured. I'm not over Becky. I'm not over the Becky gimmick. That's not what I'm trying to say. This whole she's injured thing is not, we don't need that to build up hype about the WrestleMania match. We don't need it. The only thing that I can think of that makes any sense for the Becky is injured angle is they don't want Becky to get injured in between now and WrestleMania. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, is that she's the hottest thing in the company, and she's literally so important that she's so important, they just don't want to risk it. Like that Survivor Series match between her and Ronda was supposed to be a big deal. And maybe it's a good thing it didn't happen, because if it did happen, maybe we wouldn't be getting the match that we're getting now. But, you know, Becky got injured. She got potatoed by Nia Jax and broke her, you know, nose and her orbital bone and stuff, and had to be taken out of that match. And we didn't get it. And it was a freak accident. And it's something that can happen literally every time you step into the ring or do any sort of physical segment on, you know, in the WWE. That could happen. Something like that could totally happen to you. So I get it from that perspective. I want to see this match, and if they're protecting her by keeping her out of the ring until that match, I get it, I guess. But I'm kind of over the Becky's injured storyline and the Becky's suspended storyline. I just want to see Becky come out and antagonize people, and she doesn't even have to wrestle. We've proven she does not have to wrestle or really do much of anything all too physical. We get a big pop from the crowd. We enjoy seeing her. We enjoy having her on the show. So anyway, this segment, eventually Becky gets into the ring. She has her crutches. She starts beating the living hell out of Charlotte Flair with her crutches. And then eventually she offers Ronda a crutch and says, Ronda, get in there and start beating on Charlotte. And when Ronda eventually breaks through the whatever internal dilemma she has about doing that, or whether she trusted Becky or not, eventually she decided, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to hit Charlotte with a crutch. And when she went to go do it, Becky hit her a bunch of times. Like, Becky destroyed both them women with crutches, and then was escorted out of the ring and out of the building by security, tweeted at Vince McMahon a few times, and had one of the bigger spots and one of the bigger pops of the entire night, even though she wasn't involved in a match. And the whole segment, the segment as a whole is easily worth a 2, like average at worst, you know. But the match itself was like half a star. Next match was Corbin versus Strowman in a no disqualification match, or how I learned to stop worrying and just enjoy the crap that Vince McMahon finds entertaining. This match set up with a lot of violent bumps and bruises and nasty looking little spots. Braun set up a table in the corner of the ring. He put Corbin through it with a running power slam. And then out of nowhere, once Baron Corbin had been slightly incapacitated, out of nowhere, Drew McIntyre shows up with a chair. Braun takes a chair shot. Bobby Lashley comes in out of nowhere. I'm thinking at the time, where are Finn Balor and Kurt Angle to help this man out? Nobody shows up, by the way. Corbin, Strowman, and Mac just destroy Braun. Strowman comes to for a second and maybe gets a couple good licks, but then Corbin hits him with a chair. Eventually, we get 2 tables stacked up on top of each other, and we get Strowman triple power bombed through the 2 tables, and Corbin pins him. Like a 2 stars. Maybe 1.5. Like this was 2 stars. I didn't hate it. I thought I was gonna hate it when it started. It ended up being, at the very least, an enjoyable spectacle. I enjoyed watching it, which is more than I can say about when these two. A lot of what this whole group of guys does. And Strowman has some good spots sometimes. I like Strowman, I think, but Corbin, it's boring. Bobby Lashley's kind of boring. Drew McIntyre, I kind of get some legitimate heel feelings about, but the other 2, they're just boring. But I am interested in seeing I think we're going to have a match at WrestleMania. I think there's going to be a 6-man tag match between the 3 guys who were attacking Braun Strowman, and Braun Strowman, Kurt Angle, and Lio Rush. That's what I think it's going to be. I would have said Finn Balor before because we just saw that match, but Finn Balor is the Intercontinental Champion now, and I think he'll be defending that at WrestleMania. So, I mean, that's the only reason to give it to him now, right, is because he's kind of like the most popular mid-card guy, basically. So we're going to give him the mid-card title and have him defend it at WrestleMania. I mean, the fans wanted him to be Universal Champion, right? So, yeah, those are the non-Elimination Chamber matches at Elimination Chamber. And those are my feelings about them. There's good things about each one of them, each segment at least. Matches themselves, maybe not so much, but each segment had good things about it. But altogether, the real stars of this show, which was not altogether a bad show at all, the real stars were the Elimination Chamber matches. And in the next video, I'll be talking about the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship. All right. Real quick, though. Wouldn't you kind of like, I'm not a big fan of 6-man tag matches, but wouldn't you kind of like to see that one? Like, I know I just talked all this crap about Baron Corbin and how boring I think he is, and Bobby Lashley and how boring I think he is, but wouldn't you maybe kind of like to see Lio Rush in a 6-man tag match with those dudes? I can imagine that dude climbing all over Bobby Lashley and Baron Corbin and Drew McIntyre, these just mountainous men, you know. I can imagine him just like maybe getting an elbow drop off of another dude's shoulders or something. I mean, he's such a little spry, fast, athletic dude that in there with all them big guys, there could be some interesting things. All right. See you in the next one.